Today we are talking about an indie title called Soulvars. If you're a fan of deck building RPGs, old school pixelated turn-based RPGs and things of that nature, this might be a game up your alley. But before we hop into the review proper, I do want to give a quick shout out to Keymailer and Shueisha Games for giving me a review code for both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. So with all that said, let's talk about Soulvars. So I just spent the past about 8 to 10 hours playing through Soulvars, just the main story on its own. And I gotta say, as a deck building RPG, there's a lot about this game that really scratches that itch for somebody who's looking for a newer, maybe an indie title that harkens back to that old school style of game with, turn-based combat. Maybe you're a fan of the Mega Man Battle Network series. There's a lot of inspiration that this game takes from many games in the past, and on a lot of it, I think it's pretty successful at. But there's also a ton about this game that I do have some pretty significant critiques and nitpicks with, so let's just go ahead and start this review and let's talk about the good. And if you've seen a trailer for this game, or maybe you've only played 5 seconds of this game, the first thing that's going to pop out to you is the visual style of the game. We kind of got that cyberpunk futuristic setting that we see. Lots of the rooms that you walk through, you have water droplets like rain just falling on rundown cities and all of these neon lights and stuff like that. It's got a very unique artistic direction with it. And outside of just that cyberpunk style, everything here is played out in a beautiful pixel art aesthetic, and it's wonderful. I really dig the pixel art here, whether it's in cutscenes or in combat with all of the attack animations. Everything moves really smoothly. The layouts of the rooms that you go into. As far as pixel art goes, I think this is really a beautiful game. I think that they've really nailed that sort of artistic style of 2D pixel art. Also, from the menu, you do have the option to change up the art style just a little bit, one of which is just a kind of retro style, like CRT filter over the screen. So it's cool that you can kind of put that on or take that off if you want that style or not. But you also have the option to change the character portrait models for whenever you're in battle. You see their character icon at the top of the screen. You can either change it to be a illustrated version of the characters or the 2D pixel art versions of the sprites. It's not a whole lot of customization that it gives you as far as the visuals of the game goes, but it's nice nonetheless that an indie game like this will give you an option like that. Another wonderful thing about this game is the audio. Pretty much every sound that you hear in this game is very well made, whether it just be sound effects all the way to the music, battle themes, menu music, the somber, more atmospheric, those little dramatic pieces of music, those sound very pretty. The piano pieces, everything here is done really well. I like the music here. I like the sound design here. Everything just sounds really good to me. And let's talk about the combat. I have more things to say about the combat later on in this video, but for right now, let's just go ahead and break down what this combat is. Though it might seem a little bit intimidating to pick up on at first, once you get the hang of things, it's actually a pretty fun and intuitive combat system that I really enjoyed for a solid portion of my time. And like I said in the beginning, since this is a deck building RPG, if you're a fan of games like the Mega Man Battle Network series, you're probably going to have a good time and you're going to find some familiarity here in the gameplay systems. And when you enter a battle, you have access to a select assortment of action abilities. These actions can consist of weapon attacks, buffing commands, debuffing commands, magic, blocking, etc. Enemies have certain weaknesses, and when you exploit those weaknesses, you get an extra action slot added onto your next turn. So in this regard, you can maybe find some similarities with the Persona action system as well. And as you progress through the game and you level up your characters, you'll also learn new combos with your deck or slates. Getting that perfect hand dealt to you in battle and prepping up for a powerful ability or a combo always feels really satisfying. You also have something that's kind of similar to the Final Fantasy limit break system, where when your health gets down to a certain point, you have the option to bust out your big form change. And this is really cool because it adds an extra layer of that sort of artistic flair that I was talking about. I kind of like the designs here, but also it adds that layer of combat where you have these big flashy moves. You can develop new combos and finishing moves and things like that. It's pretty cool. I like that stuff. But those are the things that I can really say I did like about the game. Those are things that I thought were done really well. So let's go ahead and move to the mixed section of this video. And I'm just going to start off by talking about both the UI and the tutorials. The interface itself actually does start to feel a bit more normal as you progress through the game. But when you start the game, everything is immediately put in your face. Text is everywhere, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a bit intimidating. In a way, the introduction to this game was kind of neat to me. It kind of reminded me of Final Fantasy VII, where you just start the game, you don't get much of any hint as to what's going on, and then you're just immediately thrown into a battle. You're not really taught much of anything. Although in this game, you do have a bit more of a tutorial. Final Fantasy VII just says go, and I like that about Final Fantasy VII. Right here, you do get a small just introduction to how combat is supposed to work in the game. And I think that this little introduction is supposed to kind of hold your hand and guide you through all of the overwhelming text and everything that's happening on the screen all at once. Because after this little tutorial section, once it's confident that you know the general gist of how this game is going to play out, pretty much every tutorial after that is optional. If you want to learn more about the gameplay mechanics and techniques, those are things that are going to be found in the menu, like whenever you're just looking through the settings and just looking through hints and tutorials. There's a whole section of the menu just for explaining how this whole game works, as well as just the loading screen. So really, whenever you're progressing in combat and you're progressing through the story, you're kind of all out of tutorials after that, which is kind of a good thing and a bad thing. I like that it just allows you to figure everything out on your own, but because this game tries so hard at just having all of these many different kinds of things to learn and do in the game, the tutorial menu itself feels really clunky, and just it kind of goes hand in hand with this menu system, the tutorials, the UI. Everything just feels a little clunky. And unfortunately, that's really all of the great positive things and some of the mixed things I have to say. So let's go ahead and just jump straight into the bad with the story. I'll just say now, this is not a game that you're wanting to play if you want a deep, compelling story. This is just not that kind of game. Even though the character designs and the world design might look really cool on its surface, I can't really tell you anything about it. You get pieces of the story thrown at you in the game, but none of it is really descriptive. It's like it wants you to kind of interpret what's going on and try to just figure it out as it's going along. But then at the same time, there's also parts of the menu that give you details about the organization that you're in and give you some details about this world and what you're doing and stuff like that. But even still, everything is just so like weirdly jumbled together, and it's mostly just a gameplay experience. It's like it wants to have an interesting story, but it doesn't present it well at all. I'll just read you the story as told in the actual video game's description. A future when human souls can be digitized. Humanity faces the consequences of its technology with the sudden appearance of grotesque dominators. Elite units consisting of soul bearers, next generation humans born with alternate souls, are dispatched day and night to intercept and counter Dominator attacks. The story follows Yakumo, a freelance soul bearer, as he handles assignments from the private military contractor DDO, Dominator Disposal Organization. And honestly, just from that description alone, that's pretty much the only thing that I really got out of this game. These characters that you have are not very fleshed out. Your main playable characters are Yakumo, Izuna, Hizumi, and Genzo. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce all these names, but these are your characters, and like I said, these are not interesting characters in the slightest. This is just your party. This is your playable characters. The story suggests, you're working for an organization. As you explore the world, you talk to other people who I assume are also a part of the organization that you're a part of. It's not totally clear, and I don't like that. You know, the fact that I would have to learn about that sort of stuff from reading like data logs, Final Fantasy 13 style, you know, just learning about the game that way, that's not the optimal way to do storytelling, and honestly, I think it's probably the weakest aspect of this game as a whole. Recently, actually within the last year or so, they actually did announce that there will be a prequel game called Soulvars Fatal Error. There's no other details other than it's a prequel and it's Soulvars. I don't know if it's going to be a mobile game, if it's going to be a console game. Maybe this will do something to flesh out this organization, maybe our main character, maybe just some supporting cast, I'm not sure. But as this game sits alone, its story is not well told. It actually does a really bad job at just laying out the plot. And the other really grating thing about this game is just its incredibly repetitive nature, not just in its gameplay, but also just in visuals, like enemy designs and things like that. Let's go into that. This is a random encounter turn-based RPG, right? You know, this is nothing so out of the ordinary. A lot of the older games that we've played, turn-based style, this is what we've had to deal with for a long time. You're walking from room to room, and really the only thing that you can do in each room is either just look at the visuals there, talk to someone, or select an item to open up, but you also run the risk of just walking into a random enemy encounter. Even though this deck building aspect is kind of fun and you learn how to do it, and once you get the hang of it, like I said, it does feel a little addicting at first, that comes to a halt pretty fast. And I think one thing that we need to know here about this game is this is in fact a port of a mobile game on PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, Xbox, all that stuff. So it's not really designed for sitting down and playing for hours at a time. You can't sit here like how I did with Final Fantasy 16 and just sink 80 hours into a game and feel enthralled the entire time. No, this is a pick up and play on and off kind of situation. If you're in the car, you know, waiting for something. I mean, just like this is just something to do to pass the time. The combat is really cool if that's what you're doing. But if you're just sitting there playing this game for a long time, I mean, maybe, like I said, this is just my opinion here, but gosh, it was pretty grating after a while. The enemy designs too, not just the designs, but even just the color palette. Even though, like I said, the things that we do get to see here in the game are really pretty to look at. I like the pixel art style that we have here, but so much of it is the same. So much of it is the exact same. You're going to be seeing a lot of the same enemies and not many different color variations and stuff like that. It's once you get into this game, after about an hour or two of just sitting there playing the game, you've kind of realized that you've exhausted all of the nuance in the game. You've pretty much seen everything that the game has to offer. A very poorly told out story and really repetitive gameplay mechanics, and it's not a fun experience if you're just going to be sitting here playing through a turn-based RPG. So for someone like me who really enjoys a good story in a video game, it's not really here. This is not, like I said, this is not something that you're coming to enjoy a deep, complex narrative or anything like that. And as far as gameplay goes too, it's got a lot of really smart ideas at the very beginning. But then soon, like I said, everything just feels exhausting after a little bit. So really, not that I necessarily think that this is a bad game per se, but as a console experience, I don't think that that's the way that you're really meant to play a game like this. This is a game that came out for Android and iOS, I believe. So if this is something that you might be interested in checking out, maybe on your Nintendo Switch, that's a pretty viable option. Maybe if you got a Steam Deck or something like that, something that you can just kind of carry with you and pick this up and just play whenever you got a little bit of free time. That's really where you're going to get the most out of this game, I think. But to also kind of look more on the positive side here, there will be that prequel game that comes out that I don't really know anything else about it other than it's a prequel, so maybe that's going to be good. But also, I like the ideas that they have presented here, and it makes me excited to see what this team is going to create in the future, because I like deck building stuff. I like the aesthetic that they're going for. I like the character designs and the world and all that stuff. So if they can just take everything that they've learned from this game, whether it be just the storytelling aspects or just the repetitive gameplay nature, and just amp that up just a little bit more, hire on a few more developers into their team just to create something similar to this, but I don't know. Better is the only word that's coming to mind, you know? So that's really just something I'm looking forward to. I'm excited to see what they put out. But guys, that's going to do it for this review. Go ahead down below. Let me know, did you play this game? Are you planning on playing this game? Are you going to pick it up on console, maybe for your Switch or a mobile device or something like that? Let me know down below. And while you're down there, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell as well, so that you are notified whenever new videos like this come out. Also, while you're down there, there is a link to the Discord down below. We want to see you in the Discord. We love talking about video games. We like RPGs. We like story content. Even if you're not an RPG fan and you just happen to stumble across this video, we just like video games, and we would love to see you down there in our Discord. So go ahead and click the link to join below. But yeah, with all of that said, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.